Oy Lanu, we're at the Levaya of Rav Chaim. We lost Gadol HaNokim. Rav Zilberstein spoke today. He said the Medrash in Shir Shirim, Isha Shkoilius, somebody who's Keneged Kol Klai Yisrael is Nifter. So, Isha Shkoilius, somebody has Torah, Shas, Bavli, Ushalmi, Sifra, Sifri, all the Svarim, someone like that. When Klai Yisrael is Sakana, what happens? The Midas Adin comes, takes away an Adam Gadol, Isha Shkoilius. Bajran Shir Hashem says that's Matzlal Klai Yisrael. Midas Adin is the bias in such a time when Klai Yisrael is in great danger. Midas Adin comes and takes away an Isha Shkoilius and saves all of Klai Yisrael. So Rabbi Zilberstein there was nobody in the door like this, nobody who had such a command on Kol Torah Kuli as Rav Chaim. He was taking us, who knows what Gazar Din, who knows what decrees we were saved from because of this. And Rabbi Zilberstein said an incredible story. It's a famous story, but he said it in a very poignant way, that Rav Chaim was writing a sefer on Chagavim, Karni Chagavim. They had no idea what the Chagav looked like, and suddenly the Chagav appeared to him. It's a famous story about Rav Chaim. But the part that's not known is that when Rabbi Yeshua told the story, he almost fainted. Why? Because the Beis Yosef brings in Yeridea, so in Pei Beis, that there was a similar story brought about the Rishonim, Tosus Ri, and an animal appeared to the Ri as he didn't know what it was. So Rav Yashiv understood from this story that Rav Chaim and the din of a Rishon, it was like the status of Rishon, of someone have such a schus, status of Rishon. Oy Lanu that we lost is such a gadol today. Oy Lanu that we are in such a state in Klai Yisrael. As Rav Gershon Edelstein spoke after Rav Yitzchak Silverstein, he said that when Klai Yisrael loses a mashpia, right, the whole world is suffering. The whole world is suffering now. The hashpah that we lost from Rav Chaim, yeah. And when the hashpah is lost, so Klai Yisrael is definitely in great danger in such a situation. Oy Lanu that we lost such an gadol. And as the son Rav Shlomo said, that as children, what do they do? How do they play? How did they play with Rav Chaim? Right, this was 50 years ago. This story. In the long winter nights, they would sit with the sefer, Maimarim would biskamim from the start of a book which lists all the Maimari Chazal, and they would tell Rav Chaim a Maimer, and he would say the Makor for the Maimer. That was Rav Chaim's Shashua. That was how they played with Rav Chaim. This was the way that Rav Chaim played with his children. But don't think for a moment that Rav Chaim was such a big masmid, right, that he wouldn't have time to relate to his children. He definitely related to them as children. Each of his children said that he was a loving father, and each of his grandchildren said he was a loving father, and he was a loving father for every single Jew in Klai Yisrael. Right? Said Rav Gershon Edelstein, there was not one Jew in Klai Yisrael probably that didn't benefit either from Chaim's brachas or Rav Chaim's Torah, right, or something from Rav Chaim. Every single Jew. It was the Isha Eshkolis. It was someone who gave to every single Jew. It was someone who gave to all of Klai Yisrael. What a loss for the Jewish people today as we accompany Rav Chaim in the Levaya Sames to the Beis HaKvaros. What a great loss. What a great loss for Klai Yisrael. And Rav Yitzchak Zilberstein finished his hesped crying to Hashem. He said, when Adam Gadol is nifter, this is a time that there's a tremendous opportunity of tefillah and eis ratzon, Kadosh Baruch Hu, to answer our tefillahs. We should all cry out now as these moments, the final pura of Rav Chaim, we should all cry out to Hashem. We should answer our tefillahs. There's so many tzaras in Klai Yisrael, and especially in the last 2 years, Rav Chaim was so sick, so involved with the tzaras of Corona, and so many tzaras that Klai Yisrael has. Rav Chaim was so involved. This is the time for all of us to turn our hearts now towards Hashem and daven for zt'l of all of Klai Yisrael. Just finish with one point that Rav Gershon Edelstein said. He said it so many times in the past few years, that everyone should be makabel on themselves to learn Sifrei Musar, especially now that we lost the Ashbar of Chaim. Everyone should be makabel on themselves a few minutes a day to learn Sifrei Musar, and to make this part of their life. 5-10 minutes a day can make a major, major change in the life and every family. We should all be makabelis in ourselves. We should all be zeiche, karov, to be living lives of Torah and following Reb Chaim's footsteps, to learn from his smada, to learn from his kindness. Just one more story from Shlomo, his son. He said that he would answer many, many chuvas every day. Reb Chaim answered hundreds of chuvas. It was clear some of them were from little children. And they asked him once, "Why do you waste your time answering these questions?" He said, "If they get chizuk from it, then it's worth it. It's worth it for me. If they get chizuk from my words." Kadosh Baruch Hu should send us rachamim, and Reb Chaim should be a melech yosher. Should be zoichet to the gula b'karva men